Today is the 23rd Sunday of the year. Our Gospel is Matthew chapter 18, verses 15 through 20. We hear of how conflict should be handled in the community of disciples. If your brother offends you, go and have it out with him. If that doesn't work, get another member of the community to assist you, etc. Before we examine this text, I'd like to make two comments. First of all, a general comment about hearing, receiving, and acting the teachings of Jesus, especially in the parables. And a specific comment about this text today. In the last words of the text we read, "Wherever two or three are gathered in my name, I am there." It's that phrase, "I am there," that makes all the difference. First of all, a general comment about interpreting the teachings of Jesus, especially the parables. It is very tempting to make a quick jump from what Jesus says, what the parable puts before us, to a moral injunction. In other words, Jesus becomes primarily a moral teacher, and the gospel becomes primarily a moral map. I call this moralism. It looks like morality, but it's not. It's the very antithesis of true Christian morality. It gets in the way of hearing God, being present to God, especially in the parables. Moralism is an ego project. Moralism focuses on willpower and my performing for God and getting it right so that I can earn rewards and avoid punishment. It gets us all tangled up and we move right away from what matters most. So what does matter most? Are these moral ideals, moral injunctions to be rejected? Absolutely not. Is there any moral lesson to be learned in the parables? Of course there is. The issue is not the moral lesson or the moral ideal or the moral injunction or the moral life. The issue is the grounding. And that is found in those last words of this gospel. Wherever two or three are gathered in my name, I am there. It is the presence of God. The presence of God gives the shape, the energy, the direction, the end, the beginning of the whole of our lives, and specifically of the moral life. The moral life, understood in the Christian sense, is simply letting God be God in us. It will manifest itself in grace and freedom. The truly moral person will be a gracious person, a freedom-making person, one who sets others free as well as being free herself or himself. Now, one of the obvious themes in today's gospel is reconciliation. Be reconciled, live in community. That is to be heard. We have to do all in our power to enact that, but how? And that approaches the question of grounding. If we approach it in the moralistic way and jump to the conclusion that Jesus has just given me an instruction, I must employ my willpower now and strategies and tactics, whatever I can to make it happen. I don't believe that is the way to reconciliation. That, in fact, might bring about a hollow, shallow reconciliation, might also bring about something that's the very antithesis of reconciliation. The presence of God is the first port of call. The presence of God will shape our minds and our hearts. The presence of God will give rise to a reconciling presence. St. Paul writes to the Galatians, sums it up beautifully, 2:19. I live now, not I, but Christ lives in me. That's the aim. So that in the traffic, in the family, in the supermarket, all places where we can encounter conflict, abrasiveness, need for reconciliation, the first movement of the Christian consciousness is to recall the presence of God. I am there. And to allow God's transforming presence to transform us in this moment, to give rise to a reconciling response. It's not about gritting our teeth, being patient, being whatever we think it needs to be. We don't know exactly what's required, actually. Allow God to determine that. Allow God to act in us, through us, and with us. When I'm up, when I'm down, when I feel loved, when I feel unloved, when I feel excited, when I feel bored, the first reference point is God, God's presence. I am there, God's saying to us all the time. Can we hear it? Can we allow it to shape our being present? Reconciliation is another name for God, a way of speaking of God at work in us and through us, the presence of God. It's what we have the great privilege of bringing to the world. Get out of the way and let God be God in you.